And now we turn over to my old friend, or friend of many years, excuse me, Pat. Pat Sapinsley is the Managing Director of Cleantech Initiatives at the Urban Future Lab. ACRE, New York Tandon School of Engineering. Pat, actually, I believe your title could be as long as the title of Prince Philip it was, who just passed away, almost as long sometimes, but it's a pleasure to see you, and I will let you take the floor from here, one of the preeminent leaders of clean tech here in the New York City area.
Well, thank you, Rob. That's very kind and great to see you, Paul. Paul was actually in the program that I'm about to describe called H2 Refuel, so it's a pleasure to see him. I want to catch up with you, Paul, and hear about progress at the company. And thank you also, Peter, for including me. So before I dive into the H2 Refuel program, I think you need to know who we are and what we do to understand. I'm Pat Sapinsley. I run the Urban Future Lab at NYU Tandon School of Engineering. And I'm here to talk to you about the efforts that we've made to scale up green hydrogen. We are the Center for All Things Climate Tech in New York. We are the longest running and most successful incubator in New York. We're funded by NYSERDA. So thank you, NYSERDA, for everything you do for all of us. We help companies with market-ready solutions to scale up, market-ready solutions, obviously, to climate change to scale up. And our goal is to deploy these things widely as quickly as possible. That's why market-ready solutions rather than stuff that's at the bench level. We don't have a lot of time. So we're pretty serious about doing this pretty quickly, and we want solutions. We have an 11-year history. We've been up and running since 2009 with a very early grant from NYSERDA. That covered originally just the ACRE incubator, where we've incubated 63 companies over 11 years. They stay for about 2 years. I'll tell you how we help them in a minute. We also have a program called Clean Start, which is run through NYU's Professional Studies School. And that's where people, and many of you might be in the audience, these are career changers who might want to come into this industry from law, from accounting, from architecture, from who knows what. We give them a course with NYU professors and our staff after hours and on weekends so that they can learn about things like how utilities function, how energy is traded, building energy efficiency, project finance. Then they do a capstone project with one of our companies and graduate with a certificate from NYU in clean energy. And they're all snapped up by the market immediately. We also did a program year before last for NIPA, where we help them to source innovative technologies to pilot on their grid. We have a program where the government of the UK hires us to scale up innovative climate tech technologies that are coming to the US. The Canadian government has also asked us to do that for them. And then together with Greentown Labs in Boston, which is a spectacular, wonderful incubator that does what we do, and the Fraunhofer Institute also in Boston, we have launched something called the Carbon to Value Initiative, which helps young companies in carbon capture and sequestration and those who are making high value end products out of that captured carbon. We help them to scale up. The new cohort was announced today, and actually Brian Asparo, who spoke earlier, is in that cohort. Carbon Quest is one of the companies announced today. There'll be a kickoff on May 6th. You can find it on our website, ufl.nyc. And the way we help those very early stage companies to scale up is that we bring in a lot of corporate partners. We wrap the corporate partners around these young companies. We bring in not-for-profits and have them weigh in as well. And that's what helps them catapult quickly. They are able, I'll talk in the H2 program, we do this too. I'll talk about it a bit more, but we're building actually the carbon tech ecosystem. We're building a new industry, and that's very exciting. So how do we do all this? We make introductions for these companies. Those are introductions to customers, to channel to market partners, to investors, that could be VCs or corporate investors, or non-dilutive funding, lots of grants. We give them office space. We create a community where they're all rubbing elbows with each other, sitting in that office space. And we have lots of events for them. They help each other. It's really wonderful. We have a graphic designer on staff. She's called our secret weapon. We have a lawyer who comes in once a month, an accountant who comes in once a month, and we don't take any equity. We're truly a not-for-profit. So thank you, NYU, for that. We have a competition every year, so there might be startups in the audience who want to enter our competition. The deadline is coming up soon, so go to ufl.nyc to see what that's all about. This is for entrepreneurs who get $50,000 non-dilutive prizes funded by New York Community Trust, MUFG Bank, Carrier, and NYSERDA. And we're also this year going to do a $50,000 prize for a community group that can help us to interweave our work with the climate justice community. So please go to ufl.nyc, sign up for our newsletter, find out about all these things. Our companies have survived at a rate of 90% since 2009. They've raised close to $1 billion, $850 million. So that's more than most of our VCs have in their portfolios. Our portfolio is quite successful. So we want to bring this success to hydrogen. The program that we started 2 years ago was called H2 Refuel. We're going to do it again in the summer of this year or the fall of this year. But I'll tell you about the last cohort. I can't tell you anything about the next one. There were 7 companies that came into this. They were pretty early stage. We did it together with Greentown Labs and Fraunhofer, and our corporate partners on this were Toyota and Shell. We also worked with a lot of NYSERDA EIRs and other mentors, and we would pair those companies up with the corporates and with these mentors. These companies, most of them are scientists. They don't know about markets. They don't know about business plans. There's so much they don't know. And these big corporates can help them with demonstration projects, with joint ventures, with joint R&D agreements. So that's how we help them. I'll tell you about some of the specific companies in a minute, including Paul's. You might want to ask a little background on hydrogen and why is hydrogen having a moment right now? It's been around forever, right? There are 2 reasons. One reason is that hydrogen is extremely versatile. And the other reason is that we're now able to make hydrogen with no emissions. We're making green hydrogen, and that's because renewables have enabled this. The scale up of renewables has enabled this. Hydrogen can be made by running electricity through water in a process called electrolysis, which is really just the reverse of a fuel cell where hydrogen and oxygen are combined to make water and electricity. Because of the proliferation of renewables, we're able to do this, and it's completely clean. In the past, we were making hydrogen with SMR, steam methane reformation, and that's a filthy, dirty process. It's called gray hydrogen. It emits lots of GHG. It's done now in a way that's also called blue hydrogen, where the GHG emissions are captured and sequestered, and then it's blue hydrogen. But we're making green hydrogen where there are no emissions to capture. It's pretty beautiful and pretty wonderful. And the other reason hydrogen is having a moment is that, as Paul mentioned, it's really hard to store electrons and expensive to store electrons. It's not so hard to store molecules and to store gas molecules. And then the other flexibility things are that when you pair this with renewables, you actually improve the capacity factor of the renewables. So a solar or wind farm or even hydro, which might have to dump power at night, can now make power at night with hydrogen and then use it at other moments in time, at peak hours when there's more demand. So that's really a very good attribute of this. It can be thought of as storage. It can be thought of as long duration storage, any duration storage. It can also, as Paul's company does, it can be reversible. It can go from electricity to storage and then from storage to electricity all at the same site. That's Paul's innovation, and it's really very good. It can also be used for clean process heat. Industry requires fossil fuels that burn at very high temperatures. This is to make things like glass or steel or chemicals. It's really hard to do that with electricity to get it hot enough. But hydrogen burns like a fossil fuel. It'll burn very hot. So we can use it in these really hard to electrify sectors like industry. It can also power long haul and heavy duty transport, including shipping, and it adds less weight than batteries. And the charging time is much less. Paul referred to the forklift trucks that can't have any downtime. You can refuel with hydrogen in minutes. where if those were battery operated forklifts, it would take hours. So a lot of this is being done in the EU, in Australia, and in MENA. Saudi Arabia has a huge installation. Australia has a huge installation. Not so much in the US. So we're hoping to change that, especially with the Biden administration's interest in this. At the moment, the biggest barrier is cost. Bloomberg New Energy Finance says that it costs between $2.50 and $6.80 a kilogram to make green hydrogen. Coal is now uneconomical at $2 a kilogram, just to give you some comparison. Gas is 60 cents a kilogram. So we have to get this down the cost curve fast. BNEF estimates that that'll be about 2030. We've seen the cost curves on solar and wind and LEDs come down really quickly. I'm convinced we can do this even more quickly now that we have great government programs and programs like ours, frankly, that can really help these companies to scale up with the help of corporate advisors. So what we're trying to do is make green hydrogen cheaper and scale up production. So let me tell you about a couple of these companies. You just heard from pH Matter, which changed its name from pH Matter to Power to Hydrogen during the program. They were able to develop a business plan and a commercialization strategy with the help of our corporate partners. They formed a new subsidiary, that's this one, Power to Hydrogen, during the course of the program. They found and continued to work with the EIRs, the advisors that we found them through the NYSERDA program, and they hired a CEO. They also were able to submit an SBIR with Shell and do a Shell game changer proposal, which I believe they won. I think it was postponed because of COVID, and I'm not sure what the status of that is now, but maybe Paul can tell us in the questions and answers. Another company that I think was the poster child for this is called Celadine. They came out of Berkeley. They put their finger on the fact that the membranes used in both fuel cells and electrolyzers have not changed in 50 years. And they've identified that the efficiency of fuel cells is about 50%, and that should be improved. It can be improved. The way to improve this is to allow fuel cells to operate at a much higher heat. But the incumbent proton exchange membrane, PEM technology, suffers terrible degradation at high heat. So their membrane would allow for higher heat, and that would allow for smaller devices and much higher efficiency, which all will help to lower cost tremendously. In the program benefits they got from us were that they worked with their partners at Fraunhofer to demonstrate third-party verification of their membrane technology that showed it was 10 times better than the incumbent technology. Now, to have no-cost third-party verification is great for these young companies. They can't afford to do that on their own, so Fraunhofer was able to do that. They also worked with Toyota, who wrote letters of support for 2 grants for them. And as a result, they were able to raise over $1 million in grant funding from the Department of Defense combined with the Department of Energy and ARPA-E and the NSF. And Shell also sponsored them for a DOE grant to work at Argonne National Labs, where they're working now. And all of this was because of their work in our program. So it's a great example of how we can help young companies to scale up very quickly. We've actually recently recommended this company for 2 very prestigious high-profile programs. I can't tell you what they are until everything's been decided, but they're on a really good trajectory. Another one is called Ecoelectro. They're working on a family of alkaline exchange materials called AEMs to replace really expensive components like platinum with alternatives like nickel. So you can imagine what the cost differential is between platinum and nickel. They think they can bring down the CapEx by about 40% and add durability, which would bring down the whole cost of H2 production, right? So that would make it perhaps able to compete in the short term with blue hydrogen or gray hydrogen. So that's a great outcome. Their technology is licensed from Cornell University. There's another one called Electroactive Technologies. That one makes hydrogen from food waste using bioelectrical processes and renewable energy. So they're part of the circular bioeconomy. Their work on the program largely had to do with Shell's team. These were real scientists, they hadn't done a lot of the work on the business. Shell's team helped them to develop some process control strategies and help them understand and analyze their business case having to do with their costs and their payback so they could talk the language of their customers. Using Shell's expertise, they were also able to run 3 different models of GHG emissions and the reduction in emissions potential. That's expensive to do otherwise. And to do it 3 times with 3 different measurement tools is very helpful because these tools are notoriously inaccurate. So that gives them real credibility in the market. We were also able to match them with something called the Mcor Program, which is funded by NYSERDA. It's an upstate manufacturing program. So they're there now. They're in the 2021 cohort of the Mcor Program. And they're also still working with the NYSERDA EIRs that we assigned them. One more I'll talk about before my time is up. Skyre, S-K-Y-R-E, was already working in hydrogen, but they came to us with an idea. They were more mature. They came to us with an idea for capturing waste hydrogen in industrial processes. Apparently, because hydrogen is such a tiny molecule, there's a lot of waste, it escapes. So they're able to capture wasted hydrogen and recycle it at 99.99% purity. So during the course of the program, they qualified for $1 million matching grant from NASA based on the roadmap that they developed with Shell. They're still working with both Shell and Toyota. They've continued their engagements with their EIRs. They've actually applied to another one of our programs, so I know they were very happy with the work that we did. So I'm 3 minutes from the end of my time. You should maybe sign up for the May 6th event for Carbon to Value, because then you can see what our programs do for these companies. It's very exciting, and sign up for everything we do at ufl.nyc.
Pat, I know you could go all day because honestly, the UFL is, as you said, it's the oldest game in town here. And I think you brought up 2 things that I'd like to emphasize. As I said, we've known each other for a long time, both being involved in the sector. Beth Zonis, the executive director of the Cleantech Open, gave a shout out in the chat, and Peter talked about it very early in the program, and Daniela did as well, as part of her accelerator program on the Blue Ocean Alliance. And I think what the UFL and all of the programs underneath it have been able to do, as you said, you're a clearinghouse and a connector for all the different members of the community in clean tech. And while, yes, we're all capitalists here, we're here to commercialize and make money, one of the things that's come up a lot is, and I had posted, might be the more hopeful Earth Day I've had in a while for a variety of reasons, but I think money is starting to get behind what a lot of people have started to have known for a while, and that, as you mentioned, there's some more policy heft and other initiatives going out, not just from NYSERDA or the state of New York or other forward thinking or other states trying to attack the topic, like Greentown in Boston and Massachusetts. And I think where you can talk to this in the last minute or 2 you have left is how as you mentioned, there might be entrepreneurs in the audience. There might be other people that aren't investors yet or that are looking for ways to make a difference. I'm also an entrepreneur in residence for NYSERDA. I've worked on the Clean Start program with some of those companies and mentored some of those early ones. So I think, ways that the UFL is how are you still helping not just the hydrogen economy grow? Because I think, like you said, it's a technology process that can be improved. You can't do that much more with fossil fuel burns, and that's it. Whereas solar, wind, et cetera, there's technology to drive down. How is the UFL continuing to be that connector in the community now that we're all still virtual and look like you're in a black box somewhere?
Yeah, we are all still virtual, but that will end soon. And we're still doing events. Our competition is going to be virtual on September 13th. As I said, the C2V event will be virtual on May 6th. Sign up for our newsletter and you'll find out about all the ways we're helping. It's wonderful that we're not for profit, because that means we're very collaborative. We're not competitive with anyone. RMI has recently opened an incubator. Clean Energy Nexus has opened an incubator. There are several new ones upstate. I'm very happy to work with all of them. We should be all hands on deck for this. And Rob, the work you've done being an EIR and being involved in Cleantech Open has been terrific. So, you know, if anybody wants to be involved in any of these programs, shoot us an email and we'll send you to the right place.
And Pat, you are not lying about being a seeder for all things of not just companies, but I think entrepreneurs, even if those companies don't succeed, or you mentioned some of your many talented staff who I had the pleasure of working with as well. So always a pleasure, Pat. Unfortunately, I have to say goodbye to you, but fortunately I get to welcome Keen Yi, the CEO of Galaxy. So Pat, thank you so much. A pleasure as always.